I'm having some thoughts this year for my 5th grader, switching it up for language arts, and I'm going to tell you why. I just want to brainstorm with you guys and kind of throw out some ideas and some research that I've been doing. I'm not making any decisions right now, but you might be interested in what I'm thinking. Should I stay with IEW? Should I go back to the good and the beautiful? Should I try something new altogether? Because this year for me was something else, and next year I need something different for me. Whether that means a new curriculum, I don't know. Let's talk about it. If you're new to my channel, my name is Rachel, and this coming year I think is going to be my 10th year homeschooling. I have a 10-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So a few things happened this year in my homeschool. It's very complex. Isn't that funny how that happens? I'm like in my 10th year, and yet has any homeschool year been alike in terms of what this child needs, what that child needs, or the circumstances surrounding you? I have 3 very, very different children with 3 very different kinds of needs. And so they're all kind of coming together in a way that makes me think I need simplicity. I need to simplify what I am doing. So here's one of the things. My 5th grader, she all of a sudden this year became like a devourer of books, and not just any books, but classic literature. This mama could not be more happy. If you followed me for any amount of time, you might know that I've always wanted a reader. I am not myself a reader of books, like in terms of fiction. I kind of read for information, and I'm more of a podcast listener. I do like a good story, and I wish I had more time for it. And so I'm thrilled that my daughter and her friends this year, well, her friends convinced her that she needed to read Little Women. So I bought her the book, and she read it so quickly. And then my niece came over to watch the Little Women movie with us, because that's how we finish books, right? We watch the movie if there's one. And an amazing thing was taking place while we were watching the modern Little Women, not the 1990s one. We had already watched the 1990s one, but my niece and my niece, who's 18, by the way, and my 10-year-old daughter, they were discussing differences between the newer Little Women movie and the 1990s Little Women movie, and the differences in the book. And my daughter was actually saying, the book was so much better. They left this out, as a lot of book readers might say. And then my niece, who also loves classic literature, was suggesting more books to my daughter. She suggested more Louisa May Alcott books, to be specific. She suggested 8 Cousins, which she loved, Rose in Bloom, and An Old-Fashioned Girl. My daughter, so she read Little Women in January. She's already read 8 Cousins, and she's almost done with Rose in Bloom. She is seriously loving these older classic books, and she's already wants me to buy An Old-Fashioned Girl. And she's starting to talk with the other readers in our life about her TBR list, to be read. It's very long. So anyway, all that to say, she's loving literature, and I want to fan those flames. So it got me wondering, do I need to do something different with language arts next year? Should I find something different? She's doing great with IEW right now. She's doing great with the Fix-It grammar, which I have another video about. She's doing great with the writing. But IEW in and of itself, while it may suggest some literature, it doesn't have like a literature curriculum incorporated into it. So I started to think, do I need that though? And I know some of you are going to say, but Rachel, you just did a video about teaching the classics and about everything you learned and how to discuss literature. Why don't you use that for your literature curriculum? I agree, and I will when we do read-alouds. But when my daughter is reading on her own and she's devouring books, I can't keep up with her. So this is what I'm talking about. I need maybe some kind of curriculum that's going to do some of the work for me in a workbook form, that's going to prompt her for her language arts lessons. In our read aloud, though, I will absolutely be utilizing the teaching from classics Socratic method that I was just taught. You betcha. So here's the other things that I have to consider. My high schooler still needs a lot of help with writing and communication. We're nearing the end of his high school journey. Anything in life you do, any degree you're going to get in college, there is one commonality that you are going to have to be good at, be acceptable at. You're going to have to be at a certain level, and that is communication. The written communication, even in the business world, you're going to be writing emails, you're going to be speaking to people. You might need to market yourself if you're a business owner or entrepreneur. I mean, you need to learn how to speak and express your ideas and your thoughts. So I need to have time to help him with that. And then I have a middle child who's going into high school. I have decided that she needs more accountability. She needs a lot more accountability, not just from me. So we are going to join a co-op where she can get all of her high school full-time with other teachers to be accountable to, and other students who she will have to prepare for class for, right? One of the other reasons why I need a simpler year, why this past year has just been a doozy. I was talking to another homeschool mom, and tell me if you can relate to this too, but it's really hard for homeschool mom to be all things to all people, right? I've got to be teacher, I've got to be a spiritual counselor, I've got to be a parent, I've got to be the housekeeper, I've got to be the cook, I have got to be the high school expert, the middle school expert, the elementary school expert. Oh, and by the way, my husband is still working from home, and every once in a while he wants to have a wife, and he wants my attention too. When you're having to address spiritual needs, because you will, especially with teenagers, that is the time when they start making decisions. They start letting you know who they are. Up until the time that they're teenagers, you're kind of controlling everything. You're controlling their environment. I mean, this was what this video is about. Okay, you're controlling everything about their environment when they're younger, but when they're teenagers, they start challenging you, and they start letting you know what they really think and what they really believe. And sometimes those things need some very specific and intense biblical perspective, some spiritual counseling, some attention that doesn't have to do with academics. And sometimes it's exhausting. So when you have to be spiritual counselor and also homeschool mom, sometimes the energy levels for both of these isn't there. So which one's more important? The spiritual is always going to be more important. So that's kind of where I was this year. I was finding myself really, really worn out from the spiritual battle that was my top priority. And I was just thinking, I need to simplify how I do school this next year, because I'm just anticipating that this spiritual battle isn't going to stop. It's not going to slow down. So I need to armor up for it. I need to make myself available for it. So I need a simple homeschool plan. So given all of those things, I don't know what my year is going to look like for me. What is my time commitment really going to look like? What am I going to need? Who am I going to need to give more attention to? What is going to be required of me as part of the co-op? And so that's the thing about IEW. I love IEW. As you know, I have been using it for years. 5 or 6 of all of my homeschool years has had IEW as a part of it. But my children they don't want to watch a half an hour video to teach them. That's just not their thing. If I'm engaged with them, it's different. So like when we did Teaching the Classics, I would often pause the video and we would have little discussions in between here and there, or I would point out things to them verbally. But in terms of like sitting my 10-year-old in front of a computer to watch the IEW style and structure videos, that's probably not going to work for her. So we did the themed writing this year where I was the teacher. So that's the dilemma. I want something more open and go. But at the same time, I don't know what to do. Okay, so here's all the things. What do I want to do? What do I want to put my time in next year? So part of me was thinking, if my son is a little bit more independent, maybe I only need to help him with writing. And my middle child, I'm going to force her to be more independent this year and be a part of a co-op where she's going to be accountable to other people. Will that free up some of my time to really focus on these last couple years of wonder that I have for my 10-year-old? They change when they're teenagers, mark my words. Right now, she's still eager to learn. In fact, the books thing has made her even more excited to learn. And I feel like I want to jump on this learning train with her and really spark some curiosity and see what else I can squeeze out of her in these last few years of wonder. So one of the first things that I actually started to wonder is, should I do My Father's World? I loved My Father's World our first year of homeschooling. We ever did it. The thing I love about My Father's World, it includes a lot of books. So it's Charlotte Mason, classical, and unit study kind of all wrapped in one curriculum. So I love that it incorporates all the stories. You can learn a lot from just reading the books. I love that it has a classical nature to it and the unit study. So I looked at like Rome to Reformation and the family cycle. And the other thing about My Father's World is it has so many fun and creative activities. I mean, it includes music, it includes art, everything you could possibly want in an education. But as I started to look at it, I immediately started to get overwhelmed. I've been down this road before. My Father's World is wonderful, but it's also a lot. And I started to think,
No, Rachel, you wanted simplicity. I don't know if My Father's World is going to be it.
Could I do it with my 10-year-old and do everything we wanted to do? Yes. But the problem is I don't know what my high schoolers are going to need from me. And I just can't stand the idea of planning another school year, because this happens so frequently. Please tell me in the comments below that this happens to you too. Have you ever had a perfect school year where everything you planned you did? Or do you always overplan or plan for the perfect scenario and it never goes that way? There's always some wrench or some new circumstance thrown in there that makes it so that you can't get to some of the things that you wanted to get to. And so the idea of just doing something like My Father's World and then not being able to get to it would make me feel so guilty. I want to plan less this year. That is what the simplicity that I'm looking for, Rachel. Plan less, and then you can add more along the way as time permits. In fact, it even might give you some freedom to do some interest-led learning as things, because I always do that anyway, right? I always end up ditching plans because they're interested in something else, and I'm going to go down that trail. Okay, so I marked My Father's World off my list. I looked at A Gentle Feast though, because then I was starting to think, she loves reading, I should look into Charlotte Basin type stuff. So I looked into A Gentle Feast. I kind of got the same feeling, like this is a lot like My Father's World. This is a lot of books to read. I'm not sure if this is the road I want to go down, because I felt like it's all going to require me to facilitate it, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. I will say this though, I was so intrigued by the A Gentle Feast morning time plans. That one might still be on my list, but I just don't know if I'm going to have time, like I would like to have time, for an awesome morning time. My son in high school, he's going to be taking class all afternoon somewhere else too. So he's only going to have morning at home with us. So he's going to have morning time and then time to do his language arts, and then he's going to have to leave. So, but that Gentle Feast morning time plan, I will say, it looks awesome. And then something else I was considering, and I have secretly been considering this for a very, very long time. And in fact, I was even considering it for my high schooler, and that is McGuffey Readers. So McGuffey Readers are the old school one-room schoolhouse readers. I think the original McGuffeys were written in the 1830s. Lots of even church doctrine written in it, because back then, the education that students got was very much intertwined with theology. They were rewritten, I think, in the 1870s. And that version, there's also like an early 1900. If you know anything about McGuffey's, tell me, because I have looked at them on eBay and I cannot find the 1870s version. I've seen the copyrights of like 1910 or 1930s. Are those the same as the 1870 version, just kind of updated with modern language? But anyway, Mom Delights is a channel here on YouTube, and she explains the McGuffey Readers and how she uses them in her homeschool. And man, I wish that I had known about McGuffey's when we first started homeschooling, where I could have taught my kids to read with it, taught them all their spelling words. The way that she explains it is you use the reader and you assign things to read. You can assign copy work, and what copy work is going to do is it's going to make them think about the words that they're spelling. It's going to make them think about the grammar that they're writing down. And then later you could use that copy work to dictate to them. And that is like where I'm reading the paragraph and they are writing it down from memory. So they're not looking and copying the words. They're writing and spelling the words correctly, hopefully, right? And using proper grammar as they're rewriting that paragraph. You can also, from that reading, pull spelling words. You could pull vocab words. You could have them write a paragraph in summary about the favorite thing that they read. Basic thing to ask kids to write about whenever they're reading to test their reading comprehension. I got this tip from a mom once. She said, just ask them who were the main characters and what did they do. That is so simple, right? Instead of just saying, what was the story about? Because I know for my son, when I used to ask him vague questions like that, he didn't know what to tell me. But when you say, who are the main characters and what did they do? Well, they're thinking about the main characters and what was their role in whatever they just read. So anyway, Mom delights. She's even created workbooks for how to use the McGuffey Readers. It is so intriguing to me because it's quality literature. It's got godly character incorporated in it. If you use the really old McGuffeys, which I think she said she uses McGuffeys all the way up to level 2 of the old ones, and then she switches to the newer ones because the old ones are really advanced. I think there's 6 or 7 books, but like the last 2 or 3 of them are superior to college level literature today. I mean, we are such a dumb society. So while I love the idea of the McGuffey Readers, and Mom Delights really does do a great job explaining how she uses it, at the same time, again, it would be on me. I don't have an open and go teacher's manual to tell me what to do, to write down the lessons. While it feels simple on the one hand, on the other hand, it feels like, but what if it's not? What if it's something that frustrates me? Because it requires me to constantly be on top of it and because we've never done it before. So it would be creating brand new habits. Am I up for that? I don't know. Kind of the same thinking I had for Brave Writer, because I did think for a hot minute about doing Brave Writer with my daughter. She's loving the literature. She's loving the creative writing. Well, that was one of the things I loved about the Brave Writer Faltering Ownership program was the creative writing aspect. They had such great ideas. And it was really kind of less about the mechanics of writing, which is what IEW is really a lot about, the mechanics and the process of writing. Brave Writer was more about the creativity and the ideas behind it. And then the arrow guides, right? I never took advantage of the arrow guides, but the arrow guides, you can choose your books. So that's different than other language arts curriculums where they choose the books for you and kind of incorporate them in there. The arrow guides, you could choose the books that you want, and then they incorporate grammar lessons in the books, kind of similar to what I just described for McGuffey Readers. So they might take a paragraph from the book to use as copy work, to become dictation later, to pull maybe some spelling words from, to pull specific grammar lessons from. Whatever paragraph they pull for per week, they're going to use the grammar in that paragraph as your specific grammar lesson. So I gave that a thought, but then again, I thought, nope, it's too teacher intensive. I'm looking for simplicity, Rachel.
Focus. Focus on what you want.
I started to focus and I started to reconsider The Good and the Beautiful. I love The Good and the Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's pretty to look at. I don't mind how they do spelling. I don't mind how they do grammar. I love that the art's incorporated in the geography and the variety throughout the program. And my kids have all loved it too. The thing that makes me a little bit apprehensive about The Good and the Beautiful is I'm not sure about the literature. I know they say it's quality literature, but I really want my daughter to read books from authors that I recognize or classic books that I recognize. And I'm not exactly sure where The Good and the Beautiful literature comes from. And my middle child didn't really care for the literature there. So that was just kind of a big question mark. I'll just leave it there. I'm not saying that the literature is bad or anything. I'm neutral on the literature. I don't know what to think about the literature. And then how they teach writing was an issue for me. But with my younger daughter, I don't know that it'll be an issue because I understand that The Good and the Beautiful, they use that Charlotte Mason philosophy, right? Like what I just described about copy work and copying grammar and copying big words. And when you read good literature, your vocabulary kind of automatically expands and how you speak might change, especially if you're reading classic literature or literature that speaks in a way different than just,
bruh, that's cringe, dude.
Right? Like the way we speak today. Speaks a little bit more intelligently. They're using the idea that you will be a good writer by reading good literature because you will imitate what it is that you're reading. I don't think that my younger child would struggle as much with writing as my middle child did in that way. So that's a consideration with The Good and the Beautiful going back there. I also was looking at Essentials in Writing. They have a literature program you could add to it. I was actually looking at Essentials in Writing more for my high schooler because of the very specific, I think, gaps that he needs help with. He doesn't need help writing from an outline. He knows how to write and his grammar for the most part is decent. He needs help with brainstorming and knowing how to express himself. And that was one thing that when I looked at Essentials in Writing, I actually thought they've got these graphic organizers. They're teaching you how to brainstorm in a way that I haven't run across yet from IEW. So while I was looking at it for him, I started looking at, well, what is it for 5th grade? Lots of people love Essentials in Writing. Essentials in Writing is just a little bit more open and go workbook format. Essentials in Writing also has videos. And from what I can tell, they might be even a little shorter, maybe more like 10 to 15 minute lessons, whereas IEW's writing lessons are usually around 30 minutes. So just a little bit different approach. They're going to cover the same things. And EIW also, Essentials in Writing also, has more like if they teach you a grammar rule, then they give you like the 10 sentences to practice that grammar rule. Fix It Grammar has some of that, but it's not every lesson. IEW is very classical in their approach. They do the easy +1. So they'll teach you a rule, you practice it, and then the next day you practice it. And the next week, you're practicing that rule plus another rule. And then the following week, you're practicing those 2 rules plus another rule. So that's a very classical and spiral approach. EIW, I'm not sure what it is. You'll have to let me know if you've used it. Is it spiral or is it mastery? Because I was going to assume that it's a mastery approach where you learn a concept and you practice it and you practice it and you practice it till you mastered it. But anyway, all that to say, Essentials in Writing looks like an awesome program too. There's so many good language arts programs out there, right? Like, this is why you're consuming YouTube videos right now about curriculum. And then do you guys also get overwhelmed? Like, there's so many good choices. Which one do I choose? And then I really started to hone in on a literature curriculum, and I almost purchased it. But I've learned a lesson. Do not purchase your curriculum until after you go to the homeschool conventions, because so many times have I changed my mind after going to a homeschool convention and seeing it in my hands. But I was honing in on this curriculum called Learning Language Arts Through Literature. If you have used that one, again, leave me a comment below. Let us know all the things you love about it, because I almost bought this. I was like, this is the magical curriculum that I've been looking for. It's almost like everything I wanted from the McGuffey Reader concept. It had the copywork and the dictation, and it incorporated literature, books that I knew. I think the book that I was looking at for my daughter had 4 books for the year. I've looked at so many things. I might be wrong, but I think it had The Trumpet Swan, Caddy Woodlawn, Number the Stars, and Heidi were the 4 books to read per quarter. And I thought, that's not bad at all. Per quarter, that means she would also still have time to read the books that she wants to read. So it would incorporate some literature, introduce her to some new things, while also giving her time to read her own literature. Because some of these curriculums I was looking at, it's like you don't get choices at all if you follow the curriculum to a T. I almost purchased it. And I will say too, like, if they made that curriculum more colorful, like how The Good and the Beautiful does it, this is why so many people flock to The Good and the Beautiful. It's amazing. The marketing.
Bright, shiny things, the colors, the beauty.
I mean, if I'm seeing one curriculum that's going to offer me the same thing as this curriculum, but this one is beautiful, which one am I going to go with? Some of these curriculums are fantastic. They're just boring black and white. You guys need to make it more colorful, and you could maybe compete with The Good and the Beautiful. Oh, this was also a Christian literature. I'm pretty sure it had Christianity in it, maybe very loosely, but it's a Christian literature curriculum, I believe. And then something popped into my head, and I can't even believe that this popped into my head. Tell me if I'm crazy. As I was thinking about, is this really what I want to do? These last few curriculums that I mentioned, EIW, The Good and the Beautiful, and Learning Language Arts Through Literature, looked to be pretty open and go. I could assign the pages to my daughter. And then one Friday afternoon, all of a sudden, I started thinking,
I wish I could just sign her up for Classical Conversations Essentials class.
Can I just sign her up for Essentials? That's what I used to tutor in Classical Conversations. That's kind of what I tried to recreate this year in my own homeschool with both of my daughters. But trying to kind of create a structured class and be a facilitator at home by yourself with just your children is a lot more difficult than doing that in a classroom setting. One, there's something about getting dressed every day and going somewhere and also having other moms around. And there's also something about that accountability to somebody else. So doing it at home is not quite the same as going to a community. But I left for a myriad of reasons. This video right here, I will link it below, as well as all of the other videos where I've mentioned curriculum that I've used before. They will all be linked in the description below if you want more details on them. I started thinking why I didn't go back to Classical Conversations was really more about my son, because I didn't think it was a good fit for him. And I started thinking, but it might be a good fit for my younger daughter. So These are all the thoughts, you guys. I don't know what to do this year. What do you think? What should I do? I am going to 2 homeschool conferences. I'm going to the one at the Creation Museum ARC, and I'm going to my state's Christian Homeschool Conference. If you will be at either one of those, let me know. Say hi if you run into me. I got to make some decisions soon though, because this year I am determined not only to plan a simple homeschool year, but I am determined to have a summer break. Check out this playlist right here for specific language arts programs. I just rearranged my playlist, you guys. I have a language arts playlist. I have a math playlist. If I've done any curriculum reviews, go check out the specific playlists for the subject matter you're looking for. Otherwise, YouTube thinks this video right here is a good one for you. Till next time, bye.